It's our first Halloween episode of the Ear Scouts podcast, and we're taking you through the most terrifying trip planning mistakes people make when they visit Walt Disney World. We've also got exciting news about the semi-quincentennial at Disneyland and Walt Disney World. And as always, we'll be answering your questions from YouTube and Patreon, including the question that just popped into your head at this very moment. What the heck is a semi-quincentennial? We got a lot to cover, including some very long words, so let's get to it. Hi-ho, everybody. This is Rob with Ear Scouts coming to you from our makeshift studio here in Celebration, Florida. Welcome to episode 6 of the Ear Scouts podcast, where we gather around the virtual campfire to talk about Disney World and Disney parks around the world. Joining us today from the great state of Indiana, where they're all very excited about the semi-quincentennial, is our good friend and Ear Scouts moderator, Quizmaster Craig. Hi-ho, Craig.
Hi-ho, Scouts.
Also joining us in Connecticut, where she just returned from an exciting scrapbooking adventure, Ear Scouts moderator and the host of Jessica Scraps on YouTube, Jessica. Hi-ho, Jessica.
Hi-ho, everyone. Good to be here.
Sadly, Eric is not able to be with us this week, so we're all going to do our best to keep up with the live chat over on Patreon. If you'd like to join us live as we record each episode and gain access to our exclusive Patreon after party, head on over to patreon.com/earscouts. And before we kick things off this week, I'd like to remind everyone that our friends at audible.com are giving our listeners one audiobook for free. Just visit audibletrial.com/earscouts and sign up for a free 30-day trial. We'll put that link in the description of this podcast, so go check out their massive library of audiobooks and grab one of them for free. But before you head off to grab that free book, let's all gather around the virtual campfire and chat about what's new in the world of Disney parks. Craig, why don't you start us off this week? What's the big news we got about some of our favorite attractions?
Yes, we do have some changes coming to some existing attractions. We do have new animatronics coming to Frozen Ever After, which is so exciting. If you've seen the versions in Asia where they have the true animatronics, they're incredible. No more of this projected scary faces on Anna and Elsa. We're also know that we're getting new animatronics for the Muppet Takeover of Rock and Roller Coaster. We're going to get a scooter for sure. I'm guessing we're going to get some penguins too. That's what I'm throwing out there.
They kind of hinted that maybe there was going to be something, a surprise, animatronic surprise. So I'm hoping we're going to get something on the ride itself too.
Oh yeah. The penguins wouldn't be that exciting. But another exciting change coming to Remy's Ratatouille Adventure for a lot of people is going to be that it's going from 3D to 2D. So no more of the glasses and hopefully no more motion sickness for those who have those issues. Luckily,
I'm very excited about that. I'm very excited about that, Craig. That's a huge thing for our family.
When I think back to riding Remy, there's really only a couple of moments that come to mind where I feel like the 3D actually enhances the ride all that much. And I would happily trade those few little moments with the fact that I don't have to have those glasses on, which basically makes everything a little bit darker than it should be. I wear glasses, so wearing 3D glasses on top of glasses is really cumbersome. And as you mentioned, a lot of folks just can't even really enjoy the ride because 3D and motion together makes them feel really ill. So I actually think this is a good change personally.
Oh, big time. Also got some new news coming out of Universal. They just recently announced that beginning in 2026, they're going to offer park hoppers for all of the parks, including Epic Universe. Up until now, you can only get hoppers for Universal Studios, Islands of Adventure, and Volcano Bay, and you could only get a one-day ticket for Epic Universe. But now, again, starting in 2026, you can purchase, you can choose between a 4-park ticket or a 3-park ticket that omits the Volcano Bay. I know I'm excited about that as far as someone who's not going to get an annual pass, but to be able to, spend a couple days there and get as much in as possible.
So I'm
Um,
glad you brought up the annual pass because one reaction that I've seen to this news all over the internet, including from people who I have a lot of respect for, everyone's in a panic that the fact that you can now get single day annual pass tickets for all of 2026, that means that they're not going to do an annual pass throughout all of 2026 because they're still selling these single day annual pass tickets. And the reason I think that everyone's maybe jumping the gun on this is because it was really clear to the travel professional community that when they did include Epic Universe in the annual pass program, at least initially, it was going to be very likely that that was going to be a special pass. You would have to get every single perk. You basically have to get the top tier pass and you'd have to get it for all the parks, including Volcano Bay, in order to have Epic included. So essentially they were going to create their own Incredipass, right? Their own top tier that's probably going to be priced similarly to the Incredipass. That was what I heard from our friends who are travel professionals. That's what we should expect. So that would mean that many people would still have annual passes to Universal Studios, but they would not have that top tier pass that would allow them access all the time to Epic. So those folks would definitely still need to purchase single day tickets to Epic Universe. So the fact that there's going to be single day tickets available all next year, I don't think that impacts the possibility of annual passes coming out. I think it's going to mean they're going to be very expensive annual passes, but that's kind of what we all expected to begin with. So I don't know. I'm holding out hope that annual passes will get announced probably shortly after the holidays because that's when the rush should die down and they're probably going to be looking to get some more people into the park. But I don't know. What do you guys think? You think we're going to see annual passes?
I think they almost have to. I mean, I feel like the news that I've heard about Epic, people are going, but it's the people that wanna go and sit and enjoy the experience of the park,
Yep.
and those are your annual pass holders. I mean,
Yep.
mhm.
I I feel like everything I've seen of Epic makes it seem like it's more to me like Animal Kingdom where it's an experience park, and animal annual pass holders are the people that are gonna really, really give them the bang for their buck on that. So I'm hoping I don't see how they can't do it. So
And a lot of people are saying that once you let all those annual pass holders in, the wait times for rides, which are already really terrible, are going to get even worse. I don't know because I think what we're seeing right now is two things colliding. One is that everyone is paying a small fortune to get into Epic Universe. So even though they might want to stop and smell the roses, as you say, they might want to just kind of hang out and
mhm,
enjoy the vibes. They feel like they've got to get their money's worth out of that ticket, right? So they're trying to get on every single thing. Whereas when you're going as an annual pass holder, it's a different kind of experience. You're not going to be
mhm.
in that same mindset. Number two, the rides are still going down a fair amount. And if you look at it on days when the rides have most uptime, the lines are not as crazy as you would think. It's when a lot of the key rides are having a lot of downtime seems to be when they're having those crazy lines you see on social media that make people scared to go to Epic. So I think maybe that's a little bit overblown, the idea that annual pass holders would just make the line situation even worse. But I imagine Epic knows more than we do about, how that's going to play into things because they have a lot of experience with annual
Yeah,
pass
this
holders.
this is one of those situations that would make John and I consider going to Epic, whereas if I have to buy a one-day ticket for just Epic, because 'cause we're not big rides people, right? We're just not big rides people. So I wanna walk through the towns. I will put a motion sickness patch on for Harry Potter and for the, Universal Monsters ride. What's it called?
Mhm.
Monsters After Dark?
Monsters Unchained.
Monsters Unchained.
Yeah.
Those 2, I will put on a patch, a motion sickness patch and ride those 2 rides, but the rest of it, I'm not going to, and I didn't see spending as much money for a one-day ticket to not be able to ride a lot, but I'll park hop over from Hogwarts, to do that.
Well, did you have I think you also had some news to share with us this week.
I do have some news. Switching up to my other favorite sci-fi is Star Wars. So they have announced Jollywood Nights, and I know you're thinking, what does that have to do with Star Wars? At Jollywood Nights, they've announced new characters, and one of the character is another thing that I've been asking for years. Chewbacca in his Life Day outfit will be doing a meet and greet at Jollywood Nights. And that's a huge thing for people like me that are big Star Wars fans, and the holiday special is kind of a cult classic, but that's the first time we've seen Chewbacca that I can remember in
So, for
in a
those of you
park.
who are listening and not watching,
Oh,
Jessica is actually wearing Life Day ears right now.
yes, I'm already supporting Life Day. It's in November. Be very excited for those of you that can attend in November, but we won't be there till December. But I'm excited. That'll be a great meet and greet. But it's not just Chewbacca, which is the one that I'm excited about. Also, Partysaurus Rex will be in Toy Story Land, and that's the fancy T Rex from Toy Story. Bing Bong from Inside Out is now going to appear. And I think the other one that I'm excited about is Miguel. He's going to be appearing at a holiday fiesta, which is near where Rock and Roller Coasters is located. They've also announced a bunch of new food for the event. A lot of it looks good, but the one thing I'm most excited for, and there's a bunch of places you can go see all the food, but they have a lot more non-alcoholic mocktails this year. Last year we went, and I have no problem drinking, around the event, but there wasn't a lot for the younger kids. And this year it does seem like they've listened to that feedback, and there's a lot of fun, fancy, sparkly mocktails on the list, and almost all of them are new. So I think that's very exciting, including a Kermit and Miss Piggy in a specialty cup, they're calling it a mint whirl and a strawberry glam, but it's like a shake, kind of a strawberry shake with boba pearls for Miss Piggy, and then a mint with mint chocolate ice cream in it for Kermit. Those look really good too. Those are not something that I would normally eat, but I will probably be getting them just for the souvenir glasses if they're still available. They look super cute, but I was real excited to see more children's based, and I'm saying children's based, but more non-alcoholic, fancy drinks for the kids that are there, because Jollywood Nights is a fancy event. It's a higher end kind of event. You see people in fancy clothes, so you want your kids to have fun too, when they're there and feel special. So they can get their champagne glass with a non-alcoholic sparkler, or they can get their Kermit shakes, and I just think that'll be great. But so new characters and new food for Jollywood Nights. It looks really fun.
And it's also great for us big kids who
Mhm.
don't
Yeah.
always want to drink it up all night at
Oh,
one of
that's
these
true too.
events. You just kind of want to
Mhm.
have a more low key evening in terms of cocktails. So I think it's great to have the options.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. I can already tell just by the lists that they've listened to that feedback, because last year, it was either you were drinking pure simple syrup, sugar, or you were having alcohol. It seemed like those were the only 2 options, and this year it looks a lot more, blended on that. Some really interesting mocktails.
Nice. Well, this week I'm really excited to talk about the coming semi quincentennial because I was born on the bicentennial and I feel a certain connection to anything that ends in centennial. So, for everyone who is not studying for their SAT this week, a semi quincentennial is the 250th anniversary of something. And in this case, it is the 250th birthday of the United States of America. Naturally, Disney is going to jump on the chance to celebrate the anniversary of something, especially when that something is America. Earlier on the day that we were going to be recording this podcast, we actually got delayed a week because of some internet issues that we're going to talk about later. So, a week ago, Disney announced some exciting things coming to Walt Disney World and Disneyland in 2026, including a brand new overlay for Soarin' Around the World called Soarin' Across America. It's going to debut in both parks next summer. According to Disney Parks blog, the new overlay will take guests on a breathtaking journey highlighting some of the country's natural beauty and iconic cityscapes. They've also got a very fun video featuring your favorite cheap flight attendant, Patrick Warburton. So you should head on over to the Disney Parks blog and check it out if you have not already. Are you guys excited about the festivities for the semi quincentennial?
Oh
I
yeah,
am.
big time. But yeah, I was around for the bicentennial, and it was like a 2 year long nationwide celebration. It was just fantastic. So be interesting to see how things work out this year.
So the bicentennial essentially, kind of in a way, led to a lot of the figures that were on Splash Mountain, right?
Hmm.
Because
Yes.
there was the attraction that they created for the bicentennial, right?
Yeah, it's called America Sings back in Disneyland. They took out Carousel of Progress, moved that to Walt Disney World, and they built this whole new show with all the alligators, the storks, all those animals you saw in Splash Mountain were just taken over from Disneyland, from Tomorrowland, put them over in Frontierland, and then of course the ones in Orlando were all built from scratch. But yeah, they did a lot last time, so or 50 years ago. So
They're also supposed to be expanding the fireworks show that they do for the 4th of July, which is already a pretty cool show. I'll be honest, for me, I wish they would do both fireworks shows in the night, just because I do feel bad for people who only come on the 4th of July, that they do miss Happily Ever After. Even though they get to see this cool special show that you can only see then, if that's your once in a lifetime Disney trip, it is sad that they don't see Happily Ever After. So I'm excited that they're going to upgrade the show and make it even more special for those folks who maybe that's going to be the only fireworks show that they get to see. Also, Disney is going to be doing a 24-hour simulcast across like all of their different networks. There's going to be special activities marking the 250th anniversary of the country, including a finale that's going to take place at Walt Disney World. It's going to be at Walt Disney World or Disneyland, actually. It's one of the Disney parks here. I can't remember which one is going to be the location of the fireworks finale, but
I'm excited about that because I think it'll be fun for people to be able to see on TV. I think that will be kind of an experience for because it's hard to get there on that day. So I think it'll be nice to have the fireworks displayed. I'm sure Disney Plus will have something. That to me is kind of exciting that they're bringing more people in. I like that.
I will say, if you're planning on coming for the semi quincentennial and you plan to watch the fireworks on, usually they do them on the 3rd of July and the 4th of July. I think I remember hearing that this year they're going to do them for, I think, like the whole week or
Mm.
something. I think they're expanding it. But if you're planning on coming on the 3rd or the 4th, big tip, do not try to leave the park immediately after the fireworks, because it is chaos. So I would strongly suggest, if you're coming that night, one of those nights, 3rd or the 4th, plan to make it a late start to the day in Magic Kingdom and plan on going straight on through until the park closes, because the longer you wait to leave, the less chaos you're going to encounter. The 4th of July, the year before last, when we did it on the 4th, we had to wait. I want to say it was like 7 or 8 ferry loads of people
Oh
before
wow.
we were able. I mean, and you know how many people the ferry holds, and it was because we left shortly after the fireworks, which was not a smart move. So don't make that mistake. Stick around, enjoy Magic Kingdom later in the night, and you'll have an easier time getting out.
Yeah, we watched from Contemporary this year. The but it was just not a great view, but we were able to get an Uber out pretty quick.
Moving on to Ear Scouts news, we really just have one big thing to talk about, and it is about this very podcast. You may have noticed that we missed a week last week. We were actually all set to record this episode that you're listening to right now, and poof, our online podcast studio disappeared along with half the internet. As I understand it, Amazon broke the internet. I think that's the technical term for what happened. Amazon broke the internet. And so part of the internet that got broken was our podcast studio. So we weren't able to record or live stream. But we had to skip that week. But the good news, the exciting news, is that going forward, we're pretty much never going to skip another week, because we are moving to a new weekly format. We will be doing our regular episodes still every other week, but we're going to have some mini cast episodes in the intervening weeks. Sometimes we might shake that up a little bit. Maybe some weeks we'll do two mini casts in a row or two big episodes in a row, just kind of depending on the flow of news and things. But in general, it'll be every other week will be a shorter mini cast episode. And that means that for our Patreon family, there's going to be a live event happening on Patreon every single week now. So you can come and join us live at patreon.com/earscouts. So are you guys excited about the new format?
I am. I'm excited. I think we've got a lot of questions and a lot of fun news that we can talk about, and this will keep us from missing. I feel like on the every other week, sometimes we were a little bit late. So this is will be good. We'll be right on time for all the news. So that'll be exciting.
Next up, it's time for Pressed Penny for Your Thoughts, where we take a deep dive on a particular topic or question. And this week, it is a truly terrifying topic. We're talking about the biggest mistakes people make when they plan a trip to Walt Disney World. And some of these are things that you maybe wouldn't know if you hadn't been to the parks recently. Others are things that you probably do know, you just sometimes forget. So we'd also love to hear some mistakes to avoid from our Patreon family. So feel free as we're chatting to drop your suggestions in the chat, and we'll circle back to those at the end. But Jessica, why don't you start us off? What is the very first thing that you do when you're planning a trip to the parks that sometimes people maybe forget to do?
So I think one of the things people forget to do is actually go on the Disney website and check the calendar, because every single day on the Disney website is a calendar with events, times, refurbishments, schedules, everything. And typically it is at least 30 days accurate. Sometimes it's 60 to 90 days accurate. I was very surprised when people showed up at Magic Kingdom at 8 o'clock thinking the park opened at 8 because that's what it opened when they were, 10 years old. So they thought they could get into the park at 8 o'clock in the morning and not realizing the park didn't open till 9. They were staying off property and then they had kids and they couldn't get in. Park hours are right there. Same thing applies to parties and special events. Um, if Eric were here, he could probably talk about this even more than I can. But the sheer number of people that are shocked when they see the sign as they're walking in that there's a party tonight and Magic Kingdom closes at 6. If you brought two little kids with you and they expected to be and see the happily ever after and now they can't. So checking that calendar is very important.
I can tell you whenever I'm there for a party, I always dread that moment when they're going to kick everyone out because there are
Mm,
many people who don't even see the sign on the way
mm.
in. They don't understand. They're like, "Wait, what do you mean we have to leave? It's only like 5 o'clock. It's 5:30. You're saying we're gonna have to leave in a little bit," and it takes people by surprise. So that is always a very unpleasant conversation to witness, and I feel terrible for those people, and I feel terrible for the cast member who has to say,
Yeah.
"Yes, I'm so sorry. Your
Mhm.
your plans for the evening are not going to work out."
Right. And going along with that are the refurbishment schedules. So, in that same calendar right there on the Disney website, it also tells you what's closed. And it's particularly for things like when they're gonna do a long refurbishment, it's a little bit different, but sometimes they close things for just a week or a couple of weeks, and if you could change your vacation and hit that one ride that everybody wants to do, or you could prevent telling your children or your family that they were gonna ride something, like we saw kids go to Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger because Buzz Lightyear's their favorite character, and guess what? It's under refurb right now, and the parents didn't know. And it's very upsetting, to me because I know there's a very easy way to prevent that, and that's a one click on the calendar checking it out. The other thing, and this is, I'm kind of starting the trip off, what's the very first thing I do? And that's discounts. So there are a lot of available discounts, particularly for rooms and packages through the Disney website. There are third party discounts as well, but if you see a discount, never assume you can't recheck and get it applied to you. I know we've talked about that before, but check your dates. When you're checking that calendar, check if there's an offer for the dates you're going and call the number. It gives you the phone number, or sometimes you can even do it. You can change your package online. It says change your package, and you can actually save for the April trip we're taking. I think I saved us almost $1,000 by just clicking a button and changing to an annual pass holder discount hotel room. So, my first tip is making sure that you are checking the Disney website for refurb, calendar, events, and discounts before you even show up at the parks.
But and before you even really buy
Buy your
your trip,
tickets. That's
right,
right.
yeah, yeah,
Before you buy your trip.
and then
Yeah.
check again as you get closer. Because some of those things, like you were mentioning, a lot of people plan their trip a year out, so some of that stuff's not on there, but as you get closer, you still
Mhm.
have time to make changes if you need to, and if a discount pops up, you can generally take advantage of that discount even though you've already booked and paid your deposit and all that. Craig, what is a terrifying mistake you see people making when they plan a trip to Walt Disney World?
Oh, yes. This can bring some nightmares, and it is assuming you can do it all, which comes with another undesired consequence when you aren't able to enjoy your resort days. You're not enjoying downtime. You're not having actual relaxation on your vacation. Like, as much as we want everyone to be able to do everything that has to offer, and that's part of why we're here to show you how to maximize your vacation time at a place where like there's literally thousands of things you could do, but it's just not going to happen. You're not going to get to do it all. Like even locals have lists of things they've never done. I'm sure you've got some, Rob.
Yep.
But just don't stress about getting it all in. Now, again, what's equally important is taking that time to enjoy your resort, your pool, do some shopping, take a nap. And along with that, understand that someone you're going with, if you've never been there with them before, they might not be a theme park warrior. You know, I've made that mistake a few times in the past where I just try to push someone past their limits and what they're wanting to do. And it just gets ugly. People get irritable. So listen to your bodies. If you're tired, take your break, make yourself a plan that you think you can do, and include a good amount of downtime into that. And just don't get upset if you're not able to pack it all in. And that's what the next vacation is for. You can always come back. Just enjoy yourself, make some memories.
Absolutely. And one thing I would add to that, taking a resort day is something that so many people, they just think, oh, I'm going to Disney World. I want to do every single day in the parks. I want to take advantage of that time while I'm there. But what ends up happening, you have a really amazing time for the first 2 days. And then you hit day 3 and everyone is tired and cranky. And yeah, you might have gotten a few more things done because you went on day 3, but you would enjoy those things so much more if you took a day to just chill. And you don't have to just chill at your resort. There are so many amazing resorts at Walt Disney World that really, once I moved here, I discovered that my favorite things at Walt Disney World are not all in the parks. A lot of them are scattered out in the different resorts. Taking the monorail around to the different monorail resorts and just sightseeing, or taking the Skyliner to the Skyliner resorts, that's like a ride in and of itself. And a lot of folks, if they don't stay at a Skyliner resort, they never set foot on the Skyliner. But if you take a resort day, you can go to Disney Springs. You could maybe do one of the little mini golf courses. You could go to a water park. There's all kinds of things you can do at Disney World that are a little bit more relaxing than being in the crazy parks from open to close. And it's just going to make you enjoy those open and closed days that much more because you're going to be rested and you're going to feel like you're having a real vacation.
Yeah, and one
Hmm.
of the things that I'll say that helps with that sometimes is asking everybody to give you their one must do. And that way, your do it all is not everything, but it's a much more manageable list. So,
Hmm.
anytime I'm traveling with people, like Craig said, that aren't theme park warriors or that maybe haven't been before, I ask them, okay, and I tell them, we're not going to be able to do everything, but I need to know what's the one thing if we don't do, you won't feel like you've been to Disney World. And whatever that one thing is, and whatever park it's at, that's on the, well, we will do that. We might skip some other things, but we're going to make sure we do that. So it's okay to like plan a smaller amount of things that you need to do so that you can also have rest. So just, I would pre-warn your travel group that we're going to look at what we really want to do and have priorities.
I love doing that, like, getting everyone to just say, "What do you really want to do?" Unfortunately, some of the people I've gone with in the past are like, "Oh, anything's fine," and then it's like, you get there, "Well, aren't we going to do this? Well, I thought we were gonna do this." It's like, "Ah." So don't be that guest either. If someone asks you, "What do you wanna do?" Tell them. That's what planning vacations are all about.
Hey, and Rob, we have a question related to this from the Patreon. Do you want to answer that now or do you want to wait?
Sure.
So the question is from Dizlist Rob. So hi, Dizlist Rob. And he's asking if we do a resort day, can we drive to each resort and park our rental car and walk around, or do we have to take a bus in from Disney Springs? And I think the transportation to resorts is a big one we see a lot. So I'm going to let you handle that, Rob.
So I think Dislist Rob was being very clever because I think I bet he knows the answer to
I'm
this
sure he
question.
does.
He just wanted me to talk about it, which is very, very kind of him to prompt us. So it is true, unless you have a table service dining reservation at a resort or you're staying at that resort, you're not going to be able to park at that resort. However, Disney has the most incredible transportation network. I think the Disney transportation is more impressive than most cities' public transit. It's a really vast network. It does take a little bit of studying sometimes if you're not familiar with it to know what can get you where. But if you're ever in doubt, there's a few hard and fast rules. Number one, every park will have resort transportation to every resort. So you can always go to a park and get to any resort. You can also get to any resort from Disney Springs, which Dislist Rob mentioned. But here's the catch: you cannot get to a park from Disney Springs. So if you were planning to make a park part of your transit adventure, then you do have to basically transfer from Disney Springs to a resort and then go to the park. But my suggestion though is focus on those resorts that have the fun modes of transportation because chances are you're able to ride a bus in other places in the world. But how often do you get to ride a monorail or the Skyliner or a boat? There's also boat transportation options. So I would say take advantage of the really fun forms of Disney transportation and just explore. Just go find the cool resorts that are at Disney World and you're going to find fun things to do and delicious things to eat at all the different Disney resorts. For me, the biggest mistake I see people make is not learning the basics of how to use the Disney World app before they come to the parks. And this ends up impacting every part of their trip. Do not think that you can just wing it like you could with other apps that you download onto your phone. People think, oh, I'm good with apps. I'll just be able to download it when I get there and I'll figure it out. Especially if you're planning to use Lightning Lane, people do not intuitively get how the Lightning Lane system works. And just looking at some YouTube videos or just researching it a little bit online. And here's the key: download the app as soon as you start to plan your trip and just start, looking through and seeing the different things that are in there because Disney has gotten to the point where that app is essentially your key to everything. I mean, it's going to check you into your room. You don't have to go to the check-in counter if you don't want to. If you're staying at a Disney hotel, the app can open your room. It can tell you which your room number is as soon as it's ready and it notifies you. And then you can go and use the app to open the door. You don't have to physically go wait in that line to check in. You can mobile order your food using the app. You can keep an eye on wait times when you're in the parks. There are so many things that you can do from this app. Character locations is another one, seeing what times those characters are out. finding last minute dining reservations. That's something else you can do on the app. But all these things that I'm mentioning, you kind of have to know that they're there, and you kind of have to know that you can take advantage of them. And for me, though, the big one, as I mentioned, is Lightning Lane, because I cannot tell you how many people I run into in the parks, and I chat with them about like, oh, you're having a good time. Did you enjoy using Lightning Lane? If they say that they use Lightning Lane, and if they didn't learn how to use it beforehand, they are almost to a one super frustrated with the Lightning Lane service. And then you talk to the other folks who did know how to use it, and they've ridden like every single ride in the park. So it's knowing how to get the most use out of that app is going to completely change your experience at Walt Disney World. I can't think of anything that will impact your experience more than being really familiar with the app. I don't know. What do you guys think? You think that am I overselling it, or you think it's that important?
You're not overselling it, and in fact, there's a lot of people on Patreon right now that are really, I think, want you to talk more about the mobile order because it's getting a lot of comments. So just kind of reiterate the importance of mobile ordering in the parks because I think that is, to me, if I didn't do a lightning lane or I didn't do anything else, the ability to mobile order, that wins the app for me every time.
Yeah, mobile order is a huge benefit, especially if you're going to try to eat at roughly popular meal times. So if you want to eat your lunch between like 11:30 and say 1:30 in the afternoon, it's going to be chaos at the most popular dining, quick service dining locations. But if you use the app in advance, this is the key. You do want to try to mobile order ahead of that rush because you can schedule it. You can say, I want to pick up my food from this time to this time. um, you're going to save yourself so much time waiting in line. I mean, you're waiting in line for so many things at Walt Disney World. If there's a chance that you can get what you need or get what you want without waiting in that line and without paying anything more for it, why would you not take advantage of that chance? So, mobile order is huge and saves a lot of time.
Yeah, I'd like to add, it's also the app is great for us serious planners too, because and I'll talk about this a little bit later in the next question. But looking at wait times before you go, like what's it like on a Wednesday night when there's no party? Just to get that idea of what you may be facing when you're there the next week. I do that all the time, but again, I'm a little obsessed. Um, but yeah, it's great for you can learn a lot of things if you're a seasoned pro too. So the app is great.
For sure. And I do the same thing. Like even though I go as often as I do and I make videos about it, the crowd level changes constantly throughout the year. So I do that. If I'm going to go to the parks, the next day, or I'll just look and say, what are these wait times looking like? How bad are things, to help me set my expectations for what I'm actually going to get done based on what's going on in the parks.
Mhm.
Yeah. Jessica, what's your next truly terrifying mistake that people make when they come to Disney World?
So one of the things I find truly terrifying are those moments when you have someone at Walt Disney World asking to see the Harry Potter park, or you have someone at Magic Kingdom looking for Star Wars Land. And what happens is people walk into the parks without doing any research and they've seen these videos or these commercials about Harry Potter or about Darth Vader or about even about Mickey and Minnie. And they think, "Oh, I'm gonna go ride the ride with Mickey and Minnie." And they don't realize the only ride with Mickey and Minnie is at Hollywood Studios. That's the only one that actually has them on it. And it's very difficult if you don't pre-plan or pre-look at what's actually in each park because you want to make sure you're getting the things that you want. So things like which characters meet at each park. I have a friend of mine who I met at the scrapbook event, and her daughter is a huge Pocahontas fan. And she was very disappointed because she never saw Pocahontas. And I said, "Oh, well, didn't you go to Animal Kingdom? She's there at Animal Kingdom." It never occurred to her to look for the characters. And like Rob said, in the app, it'll tell you where the characters are. So you can see which characters are at which parks. And some characters only meet at certain parks. Same thing with rides and attractions. really knowing what's at each park so that you're prepared and that you get the things that you want to do. It's kind of a big theme of what's terrifying, which is when you show up thinking you're going to do something and you can't do it. The same thing sort of applies, I'll say, to character breakfasts or character meals. We also had someone book Ohana for dinner and was extremely disappointed that they didn't meet Stitch. And so knowing which characters are where. My dad loves Snow White. So we had to do the one meal you can definitely meet Snow White, right? Is at Wilderness Lodge. So you have to look into those things to figure out what it is before you show up because you need to make sure you have a plan and you know which characters are where. The other thing is, things like early entry and rope drop. We kind of use a different language when we talk about the parks. We talk about rope drop. It's kind of like people that make a phone call and they put their hand to their ears if you're on the video like this, and the kids are like, "I don't understand. What does this mean?" Or you dial the phone. Um, we use a whole vernacular like rope drop, and no one knows what that is because they don't actually drop a rope as much anymore as they used to. But understanding those terms and understanding what happens at Disney World is really important before you show up.
I'm sad that Eric is not here because he has so many stories of people coming into Magic Kingdom and they expect to see Galaxy's Edge. And I think what happens with that one, it's because at
Hmm.
Disneyland, which is basically like the Magic Kingdom on this coast, Galaxy's Edge is in that Disneyland park. It is in the Magic Kingdom style park. But here at Walt Disney World, it's at Studios, and it makes people are devastated when
Hmm.
they've bought a ticket for Magic Kingdom and that's the only ticket that they've bought, and their kid has been talking about seeing, the Millennium Falcon for a month and a half and they're not going to see it. And
Yeah.
it's one of those things that if you come all the time, you kind of know it and you take it for granted. But when you're chatting with someone who's coming for the first time, don't assume that they know all those things that you take for granted because a lot of folks don't. Harry Potter's, and you mentioned that at the beginning, you would be amazed how many people ask for directions to Hogwarts Castle at Disney World. So these are just things that if you do a little bit of research, make sure, and this kind of goes back to what you said before, pick the things that are most important to you and then figure out where those things are.
The other thing that I heard somebody say right in front of us, we were watching the Indiana Jones show, was they were going to take the Skyliner to Epcot and then take the monorail to Magic Kingdom. And I had this moment of do I butt in or do I not butt in? And they had their whole family with them. So I said, "You do realize if you do that, you're gonna have to walk all the way through Epcot, and maybe that's what you want to do." But they just didn't realize, and that goes back to one of the things we talked about with, Disney Springs or the resort day is understanding the transportation before you show up and what transportation goes where is also part of that. Really knowing what transportation goes to what park, and for Epcot particularly, which part of the park it goes to.
And that Epcot one is really important too, because sometimes people will think that they can get to the monorail from the Skyliner after Epcot has closed. Or even
Mhm.
worse, their car is parked at Epcot and they think, oh, I'll just take the Skyliner back to Epcot and go get my car. Surprise, surprise, your car is on the other side of Epcot and you cannot walk through it once Epcot is closed. So that can be a nightmare for people for sure. Craig, do you have another terrifying trip planning mistake for us?
I do, and it's one I almost made for my December trip. And it's not booking what matters most to you as soon as you are able and not realizing it may still be possible if you don't get it at that time. So, forgetting to book your restaurants at 60 days out can be a truly terrifying mistake, especially if you're wanting to go to like some of the more popular restaurants like Cinderella's Royal Table or Space 220. You really have to be there right at 6 a.m., 60 days out from your check in day to secure some of these really tough to get restaurant reservations. And Jessica P even reiterated in the chat another part of that is knowing when you can book. Because for things like enchanting extras, like Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, that starts at midnight and not 6 a.m. at the 60 days out. So knowing exactly when you can. Um, Same with booking your lightning lanes. If you plan on using multi-pass and or a single pass, you need to be ready to go either 7 days from the first day of your multi-day ticket if you are staying at a qualifying resort, or 3 days out if you don't have that hotel stay. Now, the other side of that coin is giving up if you didn't get what you want right away. Just keep trying. There are services out there that help with dining, like Stakeout, Mouse Dining, that can help you score like really difficult dining reservations. I've never used them, but I know people have had great success with them. I think both of you have.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Stakeout has a free option. If you really only care about one dining reservation, like one specific restaurant, you can use Stakeout for free. And it has saved my bacon multiple times, pun intended.
Hmm.
I used it this last trip to get a GO82 day of for 4 people.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and just remember when you're in the park, new lightning names drop all the time. So just be tenacious, don't give up. Keep trying.
And even if you don't want to use something like Stakeout, especially as you get close, like we're talking a few days out up until the day of, people their plans change at the last minute. They decide they're going to go to a different park, and so they cancel that dining reservation, and boom, it comes back into play. And if you're looking, you can grab it. And that,
Hmm.
I see the craziest things when I'm looking for dining reservations, things I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's in there. Like Cinderella's Royal Table will pop up for later that afternoon. Just from time to time you see it in there, you're like, wow, I, I never see that pop up.
Yeah, and even the walk up lists. That's another possibility right there.
For
Mm.
sure.
I know Ellen just added from the Patreon chat. She says I'm 19 days out. I got all the dining reservations I wanted thanks to my often awesome travel agent.
That's another thing. It's not really on our list, but I will mention, if it's your first time, consider using a certified Disney travel planner. Use like a legit Disney travel planner. They don't If they're legit, they're not going to charge you any more. In fact, in many cases, they're going to know about the discounts that you didn't know about, or they're going to keep up with the discounts that pop up between the time you book and your trip, and they can let you know and save you some money. So don't think of a travel professional as like this luxury thing you have to pay a lot extra for. They kind of help you out, and you oftentimes will end up paying less than you would have paid if you just booked it yourself, if you didn't kind of do all the legwork. So, something to consider.
Mhm.
For me, my next terrifying thing that people do when they're planning a Disney trip is trying to time the crowds versus going when they really want to go.
Mhm.
Now, back in the day, before in the olden days, you really before COVID, there were these crowd calendars. They still exist. They're on the internet, and they were pretty reliable. You could look at that crowd calendar and you could kind of take it to the bank that certain days were going to be dead and certain days were going to be busy. But recently, really the last few years, those crowd calendars are not all that accurate because Disney has gotten very good at incentivizing people to come at slower times and disincentivizing people to come during the busier times. I mean, the prices during the busiest time of year have gone up way faster than inflation, and they've been offering some pretty good promotions, especially for locals who can kind of make last minute trip plans. They throw out these crazy deals, where it's super cheap to come to Disney World for 3 or 4 days. They'll usually exclude Magic Kingdom, but they've gotten really good at knowing how to keep the parks busy all the time. And the other thing that happens is a lot of times I'll go to the parks expecting it to be crazy busy because it's the time of year that it should be crazy busy. And it's like up is down and left is right. Suddenly it's like, where are all the people? It's kind of dead today. And I think what's happening is people are trying to plan their trip based on these crowd calendars, and they say, oh, it's going to be crazy busy that day. We shouldn't plan to go. And then voila, the park is kind of a little bit dead. So don't try to game the system. Go when you really want to go. If it's your dream to see Disney World at Christmas, come at Christmas. If you need to come during a certain time of year because that's where vacations line up, come during that time of year. Don't limit yourself to these crowd calendars that kind of push you into the days that aren't going to be the best vacation for you and your family and may not even lead to a reduced crowd level at the park.
Well, my next terrifying thing that happens is not packing properly. And for that, I mean two things really. The first is for the weather in Florida. And I think it hits people a little bit differently and they don't realize what they're getting into, but Florida has humidity and it has rain, and those two things in the summer make it miserable, and you need to bring extra clothes and you need to pack cool things and don't bring a big thick black t-shirt that's going to make you miserable. But in the winter and in the fall at night, a 55-degree or a 60-degree Florida night with no sun and high humidity feels a lot colder than you think it should. We're from Connecticut. We have 50 and 60-year-olds, 50 and 60-degree nights. We have 50-year-olds too now. 50 and 50 and 60-degree nights, and we walk in, shorts and a long sleeve t-shirt, no problem. In Florida with the humidity, I have purchased a lot of sweatshirts, a lot of sweatshirts. I own a lot of Spirit jerseys because even though it's Florida, at night, that humidity just makes it feel colder. And I tell people that and like, "Oh no, I looked at the weather," and they bought a sweatshirt. And that's what
Mhm.
happens.
Yep.
The other thing is you are going to walk at least 15,000 steps a day. If you walk less than 15,000 steps a day, you really efficiently planned a day. But 15,000 steps a day, and you're going to need to have good shoes, whatever that means for you, good walking shoes. And I highly recommend having more than one pair because going back to the weather, one of those pairs may get soaked in a downpour of rain. Or if you ride Tianas, it could get soaked in a downpour of Tianas. So make sure you have that second pair of shoes. If you have a brand that you like to walk in that's a water shoe, also bring that. So I just bought Crocs now that I have that I can wear if it's raining, but prepare yourself for that. I also bring in my park bag all the time a pair of socks in a Ziploc. So I have a pair of socks and a waterproof bag so that if worse comes to worse, I can change into dry socks if something happens. And it's things like that, just a few little things of packing for the fact that you're going to Florida, the fact that you're going to a place that has really high highs and sometimes really cold nights. It will make you just so much more prepared for your trip. Sunscreen, bring sunscreen because you don't want to pay. It's very terrifying to pay the contemporary prices for sunscreen. That might be the most terrifying purchase I've ever made. So bring sunscreen, those kinds of things, and hydrate those IV pouches that you can put into water. Those kinds of things, just because you're sweating a lot, really pack for the weather and pack appropriately for being at a theme park for 3-4 days in a row.
Yeah, it reminds me of the time I went in September and forgot to pack a swimsuit.
Oh, how much did that cost you?
Oh, we were staying at the Floridian, and you can guess they didn't have a whole lot of selection.
Yeah. Someone else said pack ponchos. That's another thing, much like sunscreen and swimsuits. You can buy, and I did like a 20 pack of ponchos on Amazon for the same cost as one child's poncho at Disney. So it just makes sense to plan what you're doing. Portable chargers for your phone. Make sure you have one of those with you because, as we've already talked about, the technology is super important. So having a portable charger with you is important. So not packing appropriately to me, it goes right up there with not knowing how to use the app. If you've got the app and you pack properly, everything else is butter. We'll be good.
I'm going to give two tips that I got from other folks related to this. One is our friends at the Dizlist podcast mentioned this in one of their early episodes, and it was like this light bulb went off in my head moment when I heard them say it. But you're talking about how you need to be prepared for the weather. But one thing that people don't think about is how cold certain places at Disney World can be when it is crazy hot outside. So, a lot of times, the theaters, the dining establishments, even the stores will put their AC way, way, way up because it's so hot outside and people want to cool off. But there are a lot of families, that have folks in the family who just can't tolerate going from that hot to that cold. And so, what do? They end up buying those Spirit jerseys. And that was when the light bulb went off in my head because I was always like, why in the world is Disney selling so many Spirit jerseys? They're like sweaters in July. I just don't understand. Why are these things for sale this time of year? And when they said that on the Diz list, I was like, oh, of
Mhm.
course. It's because people find themselves in places at Disney World where they're freezing cold and then they need to get a sweater or a jacket. So pack that in advance if you know that can affect you. And that goes hand in hand with the rain. If you're drenched with rain and you come into a super cold environment that's chilled with AC, you're going to be chilly, even though it's crazy hot outside. The other tip that I got from one of our Patreon members told me about this, and I bought it immediately, and I love this thing. I'll find the link for it, and I'll put it in the description of the podcast so that people can see this thing. It's a shoe dryer, and it's very compact. And it just, you can throw it in your luggage. And she talked about how it has been a lifesaver for her family because they always come during the rainiest times of the year and it doesn't take that long for it to dry your shoes. You just be like sort of it folds open and you put your shoes on it and you turn it on and it dries your shoes in like 45 minutes.
Oh,
It's
wow.
it's impressive. It is. It's an impressive little gadget and I got one and it has been very helpful multiple times. So I will put a link to that in the description so you can check it out and see if maybe it's something you want to add to your must pack list.
So
Mhm.
someone on Patreon is asking our opinion about umbrellas. Ellen is asking about our umbrella opinion. I've never used one, so I'd be open to see what you guys think.
I'm an umbrella guy, honestly, versus I mean, if you like ponchos and you're happy with ponchos, you're probably good with that. I'm not a big fan of ponchos personally. I don't like still being pelted with the rain, even if I'm not getting wet. Um, so yeah, I like having a little portable umbrella. That's usually what I keep.
I'm also an umbrella person, mainly because I find ponchos miserably uncomfortable during the hottest months of the year. It's just that obviously they don't breathe. That's the whole idea of the poncho. And it just I feel very claustrophobic in them. I can't do them for an extended period. So I bring an umbrella. The other reason I bring an umbrella is because I'm always carrying a lot of electronics. And so I need to cover not only myself from the rain, but also my equipment from the rain. So if you watch some of the videos that we do during the rain, you'll see the umbrella peeking into the shot because that's the only way I'm able to keep filming is because I have an umbrella. If you are an umbrella person, this is a key. Don't put it inside your backpack. Hold on to it. And as you go through security, hold it out in front of you. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck in a very long line if it's first thing in the morning for them to check your bag and find that you just have an umbrella that you could have held out in front of you and they would seen it and let you go through.
And umbrellas are great for shade too.
Craig, what's your next terrifying mistake that people should avoid when they come to Disney World?
Well, this is what I think is the number one most terrifying mistake you can make while planning a Walt Disney World vacation is not catching up on the latest Ear Scouts videos and podcasts. I got to tell you. So I thought I was like a Disney World expert years ago, but then I learned so many things from just watching Rob and Eric's videos. And that's why I joined their Patreon because I just thought, wow, this guy is really digging deep and I'm loving it. It's the best information I've ever found. And I'm just so proud to be part of it now. Um, and hopefully that we are continuing that tradition with the podcast and just keep tuning in because we're here to help. We love it. We get a kick out of making sure people have great vacations.
And there are lots of great channels also out there doing amazing work, and our friends with other podcasts like the Diz List that we mentioned earlier. I'm a huge fan of. I think Mammoth Club does a great job. There's a lot of
Mhm.
amazing YouTube content, and if you listen to podcasts, there's great podcast content as well. But thank you for the plug, Craig. I appreciate it. Let's look at some of the terrifying trip planning mistakes we got from our friends on Patreon.
Well, multiple people agree with Craig that missing out on ear scouts is the number one terrifying mistake. So I will just say that. There's a couple of questions about crowd calendars and Jollywood Nights crowds. I don't know if you want to handle those now or do you want to handle it during questions?
Sure. Let's jump into that since we're about to go into questions anyway.
So we do have a question that is, let me find it again here. It's basically they know that sometimes the day crowds at Magic Kingdom are shorter on party days. Does the same thing apply for Jollywood Nights? Are the crowds lower at Hollywood Studios on Jollywood Nights days? And I've only been just to the Jollywood Nights party, so I don't remember. So I don't know if you know the answer to that, Rob or Craig.
Typically, yes. Any nighttime event except for any nighttime event that limits daytime park hours, right? That's the key. If it's extended evening hours, which is where the park stays open later, but it stays open its full regular time, then you have the inverse. That park will be busier because in order to enjoy extended evening hours, for example, you have to have a ticket to get into that park. So people who aren't using Park Hopper, who are staying at a deluxe hotel,
Hmm.
who want to go to extended evening hours, they have to go to that park that day because they can't get in otherwise. So that's the exception, is the events that don't limit the park day hours. Those will tend to make the park busier, but the ones where you lose park hours, people see that and they don't want to waste their park hours. They want to go on a day where they can get all those hours in. So it definitely does reduce crowds even for Jollywood. Well, now that we've averted disaster and saved you from a terrifying trip to Walt Disney World, let's make that trip even better by answering your questions from YouTube. Let's start off with a question from Subi MG4WH over on YouTube. When it's time for me to book my lightning lanes, should I book the single pass before multi pass? Does one or the other tend to sell out quicker? So there's a really easy rule to follow when you're booking things that all happen at the same time. You want to start with the thing that the most people are going to be booking. So more people purchase multipass than purchase single pass. So there's going to be more people actively trying to book multipass reservations at a given moment than single pass. For that reason, as a general rule, you should do multipass first. However, if a ride is more important to you than anything that's on multipass, let's say you've got a huge Star Wars crew, their biggest thing is Rise of Resistance. That's what they're at Disney World for. Then don't take that advice. Start with Rise. Start with the thing that matters most to you. But if all things are equal, you generally want to start with the thing that the most people are doing because that's going to be the most competitive, and that would be multipass.
So here's a fun one we can all answer. June Aiden Sorry asks, what future Disney World project that is in construction are you guys most excited about? So it will surprise no one that my answer opens in just a few weeks, and that is the new Zootopia show at the Tree of Life. So that's the one I'm most excited about. I've been most excited about that since they announced it. Probably until I've seen it 20 or so times, I will be most excited about that. So that's my answer. I'm excited for Zootopia.
I've got to tell you, by the time this podcast comes out, it's not going to be a few weeks away. It's going to be a few days away. It's that close. It's
Well,
almost
until
open.
I get to see it, it'll be a few weeks still. Thanks for rubbing it in.
Sorry. So, Greg, what are you most excited about that's coming?
Well, I'm going to have to wait a lot longer for mine because it's the Tropical Americas section at Animal Kingdom, specifically the Encanto ride. You may know that is hands down my favorite Disney film. Big Bruno fan. Um, I will say I'm a little concerned because they're saying it takes place on the day that Antonio gets his gift. And we all know Bruno's in
Mm.
hiding then. If I don't get to see Bruno, I'm not going to be terribly happy. If they make a good meet and greet with him, we may make up. But yeah, I'm really excited for that. That whole section has me through the roof. So
The
excited about, but
carousel with the
specifically in Canada.
horses. The carousel
Oh
with the animals.
yes,
I'm excited about that.
yeah. Indiana Jones overlay. Very
We
excited about that.
we actually just rewatched Encanto last night, and as I was watching that section, I was just thinking about the attraction, and if I were an Imagineer, what would be the things that I would want to make part of that attraction? And obviously, the the big one is going to be going into Antonio's room, right? That
Hmm.
scene feels like a theme park ride in and of itself. But then that was all I was thinking about before. But then when I rewatched that section, I was like, oh yeah, that's where Mirabelle has the vision of the whole house, caving in. Like there are a lot of exciting things that they could make part of that
Mhm.
attraction and make it a very epic and thrilling adventure. So
Hmm.
I'm super excited about that. But it is actually not the thing I'm the most excited about. I I am gonna surprise myself even because I'm not a huge Monsters Inc. fan. I like Monsters Inc., but it's not like my favorite Disney Pixar film. But that coaster, the door
Mhm.
coaster, the moment I saw it, I was just like, this is gonna be my new favorite ride at Walt Disney World. I can already tell. I mean, it just looks so innovative and fun. If you haven't seen the artwork for it yet, essentially there's going to, much like if you've seen the movie, there's these kind of conveyor belt crane things that drop down and they grab the doors and they pick the door up and they whisk it off into this factory where all kinds of crazy things are happening. There's lots of close calls with other things as you're sort of whipping through the Monsters Incorporated factory, and that's going to happen to you. You're going to be like one of those doors. This thing is going to drop down. It's going to clamp onto your ride vehicle. It's going to lift you up and it's going to whisk you away. And that just sounds like so much fun to me. I'm a big thrill junkie and I love rides that really move. A lot of people, their favorite ride at Disney World is Flight of Passage. And I love Flight of Passage, but I want a ride like Everest or Guardians where it's not just simulated motion, it's real thrilling motion. And that's why I'm super excited about the new Monsters Inc. ride.
Hmm. Yeah, it's so innovative. Just the launch system. I don't think it's ever been. I don't think I've ever seen any coasters like this where you're going to load on ground level, and of course, it's gravity, so you have to go up somehow so you can come back down, or you get pushed, or you can have uh, the magnets, the motors, whatever they're using to just give you that forward energy. But for the Monsters Inc. ride, they're going to raise the entire track with the train on it, all the way to the top of the building, and then it's going to go onto the ride.
Wow.
And yeah, that's going to be spectacular.
So excited. Can't wait. So, Craig, do you have another question for us from YouTube?
I do. Here's a dining plan question from Mrs. Johnny Demonic, who asks, how do I figure out what's on the dining plan from home? So if you go to the Walt Disney World website and you go to an individual restaurant's page, it will tell you if it's on the dining plan or not. This works especially like for table service restaurants. They'll also let you know how many table service credits that meal would take. Now, quick service restaurants will just say some dining plans accepted. But if it isn't on the Disney dining plan, and there's only a few that aren't the Disney dining plan, it will specifically say not on dining plan. So if it says some dining plans accepted, you can just be pretty sure that it's going to be on the Disney dining plan. But a lot of people also want to know what kind of snacks are available, but you can't see what qualifies as a snack on the regular menu pages. But don't worry, we do have a workaround. What you can do is get on your My Disney Experience app and try to place a mobile order from home. Um, and when you look at the specific items, it will tell you if it qualifies as a snack. It'll literally have those words by that item. And don't worry, you don't have to add any items to your cart to see what qualifies. You don't have to be in Florida. Um, just remember the regular menus on the app and the website will not show the snack information. So you have to go through a mobile order to find that.
Yep. Very, very helpful tips for people planning to use the dining plan. I've actually got two questions here about what I use to film our videos in the parks. John Klutz1403 asks, what camera are you using for your videos, especially for when you're riding rides? I've always had the fear that my phone or camera is going to fall out of my hands when riding rides. And Sergio Rowe asks, what camera do you use? It looks nice recording in the dark. So, in most instances, especially if you're talking about ride footage, I use my phone. I always get whatever is the latest iPhone. So, whatever that video was filmed, I was using whatever the current iPhone was. But here's the catch, there's two things that are important. One, first off, safety first. I always, if it's a ride that's in any way fast or there's in any way a chance that I'm going to drop the phone and create a problem, I always have a tether that goes around my wrist. So I also use, it can't be a selfie stick. That's important. I use either a gimbal or on really fast rides, I'll just use a little tripod grip. If it extends, you cannot use that because that's considered a selfie stick. That's not going to be allowed in the parks. But if it's just a grip that doesn't extend, that can be a great way to hold on to your device when you're recording and just not be worried about dropping it. And it's sometimes the cast members will say, does that extend? And you have to sort of show them that it doesn't extend. But that's the safe way to do it, and always have that tether attached to your arm. The other thing that's important, go into your settings on your camera, no matter what phone you have or camera you have, you want to film in dark rides using 24p. So that's 24 frames per second, or not 24p, 24 FPS, 24 frames per second, because that's going to give you the best low light quality. And it's a standard recording format. It's actually what they use to record most motion pictures. So 24 frames per second is key for getting good footage. The other thing that I use, I only use this when I'm talking to the camera, but there's this really cool device called the Pocket, the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 is the one that I think I have, but it's this really teeny tiny little camera. It's so easy to pack and to carry with you, and it's got amazing low light capabilities, so I can film myself talking even in the dark in the parks, and that's very helpful. So, but I don't think it's that great for getting ride footage, honestly. It just doesn't have the same, the iPhone just beats it out on those things. The last thing I'm going to talk about, and this is key, look at getting a gimbal. Just Google, phone gimbal, or whatever device you're using. It's essentially like the modern version of a steady cam. And that's how the footage looks so great in most cases, is because I have this device. They're not that expensive. You can get them as little as like $99 now, but it just keeps your phone perfectly steady while you're recording. And it'll also usually support adding a tether so that you can keep it secured to your wrist. So those would be my tips for recording in the parks. Just use your iPhone and use the right settings and equipment.
Excellent. Those are some great tips. So the next questions that I have are also from Ellen H. And she asks, are there always two showings of Fantasmic? And if there are, can you go to either if you have the Fantasmic dining package? And the quick answer to that is no, there's not always two showings. It goes back to kind of the terrifying mistake that people make, which is not checking the calendar. Sometimes there are two showings of Fantasmic, particularly during busier seasons, but a lot of the times during the year, there's only the one showing of Fantasmic. It's usually the very last thing that happens at Hollywood Studios. And then the second part of that question is if you have the dining package, you have to choose in advance which showing. So you're either buying the dining package for the early showing or the late showing.
So
Um,
that's actually changed recently.
oh, has it?
Yep. I have not seen the ability to get the later one anymore.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
maybe it's just been the days that I've been
Mhm.
looking at it. It's only been the early showing.
Yeah, I know that there have been very few times I've gotten the late showing of Fantasmic, so I don't know if it sells out, but it could just be the early showing, so of Fantasmic. So I guess if they have 2 shows, you only get but you either way, you have to pre-decide when you buy your dining package which one you're going to. They tell you which one you're gonna go to, and when you show up, they give you the tickets for the one you're going to. So you don't get to make that decision, when you get there. So you've decided and they give you tickets for that particular showing.
I will say if your plan is to go to the later showing, you don't need to bother with the dining package. You really don't. You can show up. The other night, we showed up on a very busy day. It was a Run Disney weekend, and we walked in minutes before the show was going to start, and we got an amazing seat, no problem, right on the aisle. It was great. The other thing that I think people don't know about that dining package, they think that because they've got the dining package, they're definitely going to get a good seat and they don't need to show up super early. Not
Mm-mm.
true. You still have to show up early because there's only this one bank of seats that's for the dining package, and people show up early and they get the best seats in that section, and you might get stuck kind of, at the back, or in some cases they seem to sometimes like run out of space in that area. I don't know how they oversell it, but I think sometimes they do. So you still have to get there early. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah.
It's an interesting Fantasmic is interesting because you think that because they're seating, you're gonna be able to get there a couple minutes before and you'll be able to be fine, but it's always it's the one that I feel like I'm always the least prepared for, like, to get to and to get good seats for, and I don't know why that is, but it feels harder to find the right seat than it does at either Luminous or Happily Ever After. So, it's an
Yeah.
interesting one.
Unless you do the last show, and then
Uh,
you're good.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, go to the last show. Go to the last show, walk right in,
Yeah.
you'll be fine.
I've actually got another question here from Ellen H. She asked, I just realized that on my planned Epcot day in November, they will also have extended evening hours for deluxe resort guests. Will that make the park busier? Oops, I think I already answered this question early in the episode. Will that make the park busier during the day? There's not a Christmas party that day at Magic Kingdom, but Jollywood Nights will be happening that evening at Hollywood Studios. Not sure if that also affects crowd levels. So many variables happening in that question. The short answer is yes. Anytime there's extended evening hours, it's going to make that park a little bit busier because of what we talked about earlier. People who only have single day tickets, who don't have the ability to park hop, they're going to choose that park because they want to take advantage of the extended evening hours. So that happens. The other thing that happens is as the day goes on, people who do have the park hopper tickets, they're all going to start hopping in to that park later in the day so that they can take advantage of the extended evening hours. So that's the thing I dislike most about being in a park that has extended evening hours, if I'm not getting to do the extended evening hours, is that it takes away one of the most magical things that happens at Disney World. And that is that you can get into any line right before the park is going to close, and they'll let you go through that line and ride that attraction. And normally that's the shortest wait of the day too, because it's kind of dead. Everyone's leaving the park. So you can get a really short wait and you can do it without using up park time. But what happens when there's extended evening hours is the opposite. It gets crazy crowded right as extended evening hours is starting because everybody's coming into the park, right, to start their extended evening hours. And so you don't get that magical last ride of the night. In terms of the other parties affecting it, yes, that's also going to, anytime there's a party at one of the parks, it will increase crowd levels at the other parks. And extended evening hours is just going to magnify that.
Yeah. So speaking of the holidays, here's a question from Holidays with Liz, who asks, what do you think will get us closer to the front of the line for early entry at Animal Kingdom? Parking my car or taking the bus from All Star Sports? And while we're on the subject, here's a related transportation question from Jessica P., who wants to know if early entry is at 8:30 a.m. at Epcot, what is the earliest Ubers can drop off at the front of the park? I assume at least by 7:30, but is it any earlier than that? So big shout out to Scoutmaster Jessica P, who actually answered her own questions for us on Patreon, because she was there just last week and ended up taking a minivan from the beach club in the morning. Now they were let in at 7:25 a.m., but she noticed there were no cars at the toll plaza, and that's because if you show up too early, they're going to make you turn around and come back.
Mhm.
So it didn't used to be like that. It's been a while, I guess, since I've driven a car, but I remember, yeah, they would just line up people at the parking toll plaza and just let them in at whatever time they were letting them in at that point. Um, she also said that they were letting buses in at that time. So I think the best advice, if you're staying at the Disney resorts, if you can get on the earliest bus, and this goes for Holidays with Liz question about Animal Kingdom from the All Stars, you're going to be better off getting one of the first couple of buses than driving and having to wait or possibly being turned back. Same with if you're in an Uber and you get there too early, you're going to have to turn back, and that's going to cost you probably extra money. If you can do Disney transportation for the early entry, I think they've pretty much situated it so that is your best chance.
And now there is a way in the app. You can go to your resort in the app, and this doesn't work until you're actually physically staying at the resort. So you can't see this in your app in advance. But while you're at the resort, you can see bus times for your resort. And whatever it says, it'll tell you when the first bus is scheduled to arrive. I can tell you from experience, be there about 10 to 15 minutes before that, because sometimes the drivers are raring to go and they might leave a
Mhm.
little bit earlier than that first scheduled time, but you can see that first scheduled time in the app. And just be about 10 minutes before that, and you should be on the first bus. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for questions this week. But if you still have questions, let us know in the comments on one of our Ear Scouts videos on YouTube, or join us live at patreon.com/Ear Scouts. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you can hear the answer if we're able to include it. Before we go, however, we have one last segment that we like to call Happy Thoughts, which is like a little trick or treat surprise at the end of the night. Jessica, what is your happy thought this week?
So my happy thought is I was, as you said at the beginning of the podcast, scrapbooking. So I went to a scrapbook crop, which is a fun way to say a bunch of people get together for a weekend and we scrapbook and we have lots of fun things happening. And I was walking through the crowd of 100 people who were all scrapbooking, and this lovely lady had a Disney page open, and so we started talking. And I happened to mention, oh yeah, I'm kind of on a podcast now, and I said Ear Scouts, and she was overwhelmed. "You mean Rob? Like Rob from Ear Scouts?" And I said, "Yes, Rob from Ear Scouts." And I was able to text Rob, and he sent Lisa and her daughter Maddie a lovely 30-second video telling them how much he appreciated them watching the show, and I was able to send that to them, and I made those two wonderful women very happy, as did Rob that day. But it was fun to see all my worlds collide there in one little place. So I will say my happy thought is that I get to be part of this community because it's a great community of people, and I find as I'm walking through my real life, more and more people know about Rob from Ear Scout. So that was my happy thought. It was great. And if you're listening, I think they're gonna be podcast listeners now. It was great to see you, and I'll see you at the next My Little Scrapbook Store's crop. So that was my happy thought.
Aw, that's so. You, if you can't see, I'm sure I'm blushing right now. I feel there's so many Ear Scouts plugs today. Thank you guys. Craig, what is your happy thought today?
Yeah, so a couple of weeks ago, Eric and I made it back to Cedar Point in northern Ohio for their Halloweekends party nights. We had a great time, but one of my favorite parts of the trip was discovering the downtown Sandusky Cedar Point Historical Museum, which is a new expansion of the Sandusky Merry-Go-Round Museum, and that's been there since 1990. Um, they used to have a little Cedar Point museum in the park, and they just got rid of it. And so luckily I'd heard that they were opening up another one in downtown Sandusky. And I got to talk to the curator, and he explained that, yeah, everything here is stuff that he has been able to curate on his own. Some things from Cedar Point, but they're not always, it just depends on who's running the park at the time and if they're willing to cooperate and give him stuff. But he was able to set up this huge museum. There's like so much memorabilia that I recognized from the 70s and the 80s when I was going there as a kid. Um, it just turned into one of the happiest days I've ever had. And they also have this merry-go-round museum, which they have a real carousel, an ancient carousel in the room itself, and you get a ticket when you buy your admission ticket, you get a ticket to ride the carousel as well. And there's just two of us and maybe two or three other people there, and we just all got to ride this old carousel and
Wow.
see all the, like, they had all these old horses and lion. They had a ton of lions, which that's my favorite animal. So I was really excited about that. But it just made my heart so full to see all of this history preserved. So if you ever find yourself in Sandusky or at Cedar Point, I highly recommend the side trip.
Very cool. Well, my happy thought is actually one I was planning to share last week when we weren't able to do the show, because there had been a new episode of We Call It Imagineering that came out that day. There's another episode that came out today that I haven't watched yet, but these details are from that episode. So if you aren't subscribed to We Call It Imagineering on YouTube, do yourself a favor, go check them out, because it's Walt Disney Imagineering. It's their show that they do about themselves, and they have so many cool details. So the episode was all about the Haunted Mansion, which is appropriate enough for Halloween season. And I learned some things that I did not know about this attraction. Number one, did you know that the original concept was that the narrator of the Haunted Mansion was going to be a cat? It was going to be a cat narrator. That didn't really work out. And so they changed it into a raven. And that's why you see the raven appear again and again. There's the raven there with Madame Leota. There's the raven in the scene where the guy's trying to get out of the coffin. So those ravens were going to be the narrator of the attraction, and they just, again, they couldn't make it work the way that they wanted. So they ended up with what we all know and love, the ghost host narrating uh, from your doom buggy. But I thought that was an interesting little tidbit. Another thing I thought was fascinating, you know how at the end scene, as you're coming right before you see the hitchhiking ghosts, there's that band that's playing in the kind of outdoor party scene. Well, the way that they got the sound that they wanted that band to have, that kind of otherworldly sound, they orchestrated it backwards. So in other words, they had them play the music, the orchestra played the music backwards, and then they reversed the recording of them playing. So it's kind of this, like, it gives it this eerie sound because you're not used to hearing the instruments play backwards. And that's why it sounds that way, which I thought
Hmm.
was very cool.
It's
And
fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, right. And that actually, they didn't include this in the episode, but I have to wonder if that was part of the inspiration for in the Twin Peaks show, the backward speaking man in Agent
Mm-hmm.
Cooper's dream. They did the same thing essentially. They wrote his lines backwards. They had the actors say the lines backwards, and then they reversed the audio to give it that otherworldly sound. So cool
Wow.
little connection there between the two. And then the final fun thing that I learned that I could not believe, I'd never knew this. Did you know originally there was a fourth hitchhiking ghost? That was they had originally done maquettes for four hitchhiking ghosts, and one of them just didn't work out. They just didn't like him, and they liked Ezra a lot better. So they went with three. But if you watch the show, you can see the fourth hitchhiking ghost that didn't come to be.
Mhm.
So
Now, is the fourth ghost more of like a sheet ghost, like a white
yes.
sheet kind of ghost? Okay. I have seen that then. Yeah.
So
That's
where
so
did you
cool.
see it? I'm curious.
I don't know. As soon as you said that, it's like it popped in my head. So it might have been, I didn't see that
Interesting.
video, but it was fairly recently that I saw it too. So
Cool. Well, if
yeah.
you're a big Haunted Mansion fan like Craig or myself or Uh, Jessica has a house full of Haunted Mansion fans, I know.
I
Um,
do. Lots of Haunted Mansion fans here.
yeah, this is the perfect time to go check out, we call it Imagineering on YouTube. But before you do, be sure to subscribe to this show wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and we'll be back next week with our very first mini cast. Until then, don't forget to think happy thoughts, everybody. We'll see you again real soon.